We're going to solve this two-variable linear programming problem using the solver function in Excel. Take note of the objective function and the constraints given, as they will be the ones used to solve this problem in Excel. To solve this problem in Excel, we first must create columns for our variables. Leaving the first column blank, our first variable is jumbos, and our next variable is minis. We left the first column blank because that's where we're going to enter our constraint names. Now we start entering our constraints. The first one was an oven constraint. Now for the variables on the constraints, we enter the coefficient in front of those variables. For the oven constraint, the jumbos was a 1, the minis was a 1. We skip a column and put the total number of oven minutes that were available, which was 200. And we move to our second constraint, which in this case was flour. The coefficient for jumbos in the flour constraint was 2, because there was 2 ounces of flour in a jumbo, 1 ounce of flour in a mini, and there was 300 ounces of flour available. The final two constraints were non-negativity constraints. They are entered by saying 1, 0, and 0, signifying that the jumbos are greater than or equal to 0, and 0, 1, and 0, signifying that the minis are greater than or equal to 0. We will then skip a row and enter our profit equation. And the coefficient in front of jumbos for our profit equation was 10 cents, because that's the profit made on the jumbos, and 8 cents for the minis. We're now going to highlight some regions for where our answers are going to be, so they'll be easier to see. I'm first going to highlight under the variables all the way over to under the constants. I'm then going to choose the fill function and choose this to be yellow. This is ultimately where our answer is going to be, both the number of jumbos and minis and the total profit. I am also going to highlight the empty column where the constraints are and fill it with red, because those are going to be our limiting functions. We now have to enter our equations for the constraints. Okay, in the first cell of the constraint, we have to enter an equation, which is done by saying equal to. It's going to be the oven coefficient times ultimately what will be our answer for the number of jumbos, plus the coefficient for minis times the answer for minis. And I'll hit enter. I'm then going to go back and highlight that cell again and select between the letter and the number on our answer cells, in this case B and 8, and insert a dollar sign. I'm also going to do the same for C and 8 and insert a dollar sign. By doing this, I'm able to drag this formula down for all of the constraints. So I now have all the formulas entered. I'll then select the last highlighted yellow cell, and I'm going to type in a formula for it. This is where our ultimate profit will be. I type equal to get our profit. It'll be the coefficient for profit times the number of jumbos that will be sold, plus the coefficient for minis times the number of minis that will be sold. And I hit enter. I'm then going to go back and highlight that cell. Now I'm ready to just use the solver. I go to the Tools menu and select Solver. This screen of solver parameters will come up. Set Target Cell is where the ultimate profit is going to be. This is set at E8, which is where our profit is going to be, so that's good. Equal to, in this case I want to maximize the profit, so I have the radio button selected with max. By changing cells, I want to change the cells of where my answers are going to be. So I select this icon. My answers are going to be in the first two yellow cells, in this case because I have two variables. And I will then hit enter. So it changes from B8 to C8. That's what I want. You can see it's highlighted up here. Subject to the constraints. Well, I need to add my constraints now, so I select add. The cell reference, that's where my formula is. So I select the formula for oven. Is it less than or equal to? So that's what I want. And the constraint is the cell E2 for 200. Well, I need to add the other constraints, so I select add. The cell reference is once again the formula. And for a flour, it should be less than or equal to the constraint 300, which is an E3. I have more constraints, so I add. Cell reference, the formula. In this case, it's greater than or equal to. And the constraint is in E4, which is 0. I have one more to add. Cell reference is the equation. This one is also greater than or equal to. And finally, I choose E5. Since I have all my constraints now, I select OK. I have everything filled in. Now it's time to choose solve. And what I get is my ultimate number of jumbos that need to be made, the ultimate number of minis that need to be made, and my total profit. And these are the values that are limiting me. Solver had found a solution. I then want to select my answer report, keep solver solution, and select OK. And what I get is the screen that I originally had, and I also have an answer report that tells me a lot of information about solving this problem. Fancy that.